All right, students, today we're going to talk about what good writing looks like in college. So you have hopefully, I'm sure you have gathered lots of skills over the course of your learning about how to write well. Writing in college is a little bit of a different animal. There's a very specific way you write in college, and that's partly what this course is to help you learn how to do. You will see elements of it outside of this course in articles you read or books you read, things like that. But keep in mind there is a pretty specific structure for college writing that may or may not match up with what you're seeing other places. So we'll get into kind of what that means more. But when we write in college, we want to make sure that our meaning is clear, that we are credible, meaning people can trust the message that we are including, and that we're adding meaning to whatever topic we're bringing up. So which means that we're not just skimming the surface of whatever topic we're on, but we're trying to dig deeper and to share insights and a bit more of a specific perspective that we have. We're not just trying to put down thoughts to get them down, if that makes sense. Writing really is a critical thinking tool, and it's a way to show others how you're thinking through ideas and processing them. So there's several resources we use in this class. I also would recommend other things if you're interested in learning about writing. There's several books. These are two that are always on the list of like how to become a good writer. Stephen King's memoir on writing and Anne Lamont's on, it's called Bird by Bird. I definitely encourage you to seek those out. So good writing, besides being, these things that we've talked about, these characteristics, it also is going to always go through a process. So even if you're writing an email or a budget list or a text message even sometimes, you're going to go through these processes. You're going to have a space where you're thinking through your ideas, you're researching them, you're trying to narrow down what you want to say. That's pre-writing. Then you go through an initial draft. Now, I will say what I see happen a lot of times is students will try to draft and publish. That's not going to work. You need to be able to do all of these steps in order to have a good paper. The biggest problem with going straight to drafting is that you don't have enough ideas. So if you're someone who struggles with getting down your thoughts or meeting word counts, you're going to really want to spend more time in the pre-writing phase. That's the number one tip I have for students when they're like, I just can't meet the word count. If you think about it, if you have a lot to say on something, it's not hard to meet the word count. And a lot of students will say, well, I don't like writing unless I'm interested in it. That's fair. I have a hard time writing when I'm not interested in something either. So the trick is to get interested in it, get your head around it, figure out some way that you can find this interesting, right? Excuse me. And that's going to give you lots more information, and it's going to give you stuff to work with, right? So pre-writing, then drafting, and then it's not done yet. You might have a great 4 to 6 page paper, but I can promise you there are things that you can do to organize it better, to further clarify ideas, to eliminate grammar errors that you're going to want to process in the revising and editing phase. And then publication. This one is also one we kind of skip over because we're just like, oh, I just turned it into my teacher or something. Publication is important because you want to think about who's going to read it. So that starts even at the pre-writing phase when you think about, okay, what kind of materials, resources could I gather that would be interesting to this audience? So even though this is kind of seems like a smaller thing, it is something that influences the rest of the writing process. So do keep that part in mind. So we're going to break down some of these ideas a little bit more. So pre-writing, I talked about researching ideas. It also comes down to trying to plan your thoughts out in some sort of paper form. So this is an example of a mind map where you just try and put down your ideas and try and figure out connections. Don't get too bogged down in like how to do these correctly. This is just a way to freeform think about things on paper. So you could also bullet list. You could just start writing and see what you come up with, right? And then look at it and figure it out. Now, we'll also do outlines in this course. That is a way to sort of organize your thoughts after you've done something like this and after you've done some research and things. So if you get kind of like, oh gosh, but this is, I have to know what I know before I write it down. You do not. You absolutely can take some time to just figure it out by doing some sort of free form writing like this. This just helps you organize your ideas, so it's another way of pre-writing. I would say that most times I write, I go through all of these phases. I research to figure out what I want. I do some sort of loose gathering of ideas on paper, and then I try and organize it before I even do any drafting at all. All right, I love this quote by Annie Murphy Paul. It says, our brains, it might be said, are like magpies, fashioning their finished products from the materials around them, weaving the bits and pieces they find into their trains of thought. So the idea is that we think of our brains like muscles sometimes, but she's saying it's actually more like a bird's nest where we're just gathering materials and trying to put it into some sort of our thoughts into some sort of form. And that's a lot what writing is. So the more you can be out there gathering materials just in your everyday life, as far as, you know, reading some quality text, articles, listening to podcasts, doing your own, you know, pleasure reading, those kinds of things are going to give you more and more to work with. So that would be another thing to add into the pre-writing. It might not actually go directly to a paper, but I promise it will give you ideas and things to work with. Okay, the other thing to think about with this is that writing, well, we'll just read this first. Serious writers write inspired or not. Over time, they discover that routine is a better friend than inspiration. So part of the writing process is just making time for writing. And over the years I've been teaching, I found that this is one of the number one things that students do that get them a passing grade. So if you can make sure that you put time into your writing, you will see a better end product for sure. Okay, and then we go through the editing process. So when we edit, we're looking at structure, we're making sure our purpose aligns with what we wanted it to, we're looking at grammar. It's perfectly okay to write garbage as long as you edit brilliantly. Here's what I would say about that as well. Most people do write garbage the first time, me included, published authors included. Almost everyone, every kind of writing source I've looked to when they're talking about their writing, authors, professors, everyone says it just comes out not how I want it the first time. And that's okay. So if you're at that point, know that you've got really good company. Some people do kind of think through their ideas and kind of more carefully do that, so it's not quite as garbage-like, but everybody's got to come back and rework things and make sure it looks better. So revising and editing, super crucial, super crucial. That would be one way to really improve writing. Okay, and we talked about good writing is credible. We are going to go over all of these things more in depth over the course of the semester. I just want you to get a broad sort of overview of where we're going and how they connect. So credible, one of the things we look at is the format, how the paper actually looks, how you set up the fonts, how you've made sure it's in like the style guide that's required for it. And again, we'll go over that more, but just I can glance at a paper and I can know whether it's a D or an A paper sometimes. And that is really important. So take the time to make sure it looks correct. It's also going to be part of a scholarly conversation, which means you're going to do your research. You're going to say, here's what I know. Here's what other people are saying. Here's what I think about that, right? It is very important when you do that to properly credit the people that you're talking about. It is super a good idea to include other people's ideas in your writing. But if you don't include their names in there, that's where you get in trouble. So never feel like, oh, I have to say this fancy the way this person said it. No, you don't. Just have them say it and then respond to it. That's fine. That's what we're looking for. So here's the format, what I'm talking about. This is what a good college paper should look like. The citing, as far as like using other people's ideas, that's going to include in-text citations that are correctly formatted and a works cited page. So in-text citations would look like this. You have quotes around what you're saying. You have some sort of tag that says where it came from, and that's going to connect to a works cited page later. Again, we're going to go over all of this later. I'm just showing you where we're heading. Structure. So the structure of good writing in college almost always follows something like this. You have an introduction which tries to engage your reader and has a specific thesis. You have body paragraphs that all tie directly back to that thesis. And then you have a conclusion where you bring it all together and tell your reader what to think about it. Okay? The content within every paper should include some sort of credibility. We won't always have research in there, but you should be able to show that you're trustworthy and that you've really thought about these things. You should have a neutral academic tone. We do not do conversational writing in college. That's really fun. I love to see when students do that. It's not that it's not good to do, it's just not what we do in college. And unfortunately, I used to have some where, I guess the first and last paper, you can get away with a little bit of it, but the rest of the papers really shouldn't have much conversational language at all. Do keep that up though in other places, just not college. And then we talked about we want to be insightful. So those are the things that I'm going to be looking for. That's where we're going. That's the destination. If we talked about some of these things and you're like, yes, I got that, that's great. We'll just review that in here and add on to it. If some of these things were like I totally lost you, know that we're going to go back into it. We're going to break down all of these different things. But I just wanted to, at the beginning, let you know this is the goal. The goal is for our writing to be credible, to add meaning, for us to look smart. That's what we want to do. That's what our writing is helping us do. So, yeah, looking forward to seeing what you write, and let me know if you have questions.